Welcome back to another exciting episode. To bring out your inner entrepreneur, cultivate a mindset of curiosity, resilience, and flexibility, set clear and achievable goals, and learn how to manage stress and failure. This might sound like it's coming from a textbook, but no, today we're going to pick the mind of an awesome entrepreneur, a CEO, and someone who's doing all of this. So we're thrilled to explore a topic that is at the heart of innovation leadership. How do we bring out that inner entrepreneur? It's not just enough for you leading your organization. How about the people that you're inspiring, hoping to bring the best out of them, wanting them to feel like they're part of the team and not just some component to your overall goals? So, whether you're building a business or you're just trying to grow from the inside out, this is going to be a conversation for you. One where I believe you're going to see and hear from a leader where her strengths, curiosity, resilience, and a willingness to let others shine is what's brought her some incredible success. Lisa Coyle has scaled companies across payments, automotive, and technology, and she's built dynamic teams and a dynamic culture and continues to shine as the CEO of Promotive. Lisa, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm awesome. With that introduction, I don't know how I could not be, honestly. I'm ready to go like work out or, come out on a stage, but here I am in Walnut Creek, California, and I'm loving life, but now extra loving life.
Well, I felt like I was encouraged and challenged to have to step my game up because of the type of person that you are. I know that you attack everything with this sense of enthusiasm. Yeah, you are excited about life, but you're also excited about building. I want to ask you, as Lisa, as we get ready to start our conversation here, tell us a little bit about your leadership journey, what you've done, every project you've had your hands on, and what led you to build the company you're leading now.
Yeah, so to start off, I guess I'm the oldest of seven kids through multiple marriages. My mom was busy, but not that busy. They had me at a young age. They were 20 years old, and we were on food stamps, David, as a kid, and we needed the government assistance. And my grandparents were only 20 years older than my parents, so my grandma is only 81. I'm 41, and she took care of us. And of course, my parents were in college while I was growing up. So I feel like I was forced to kind of be an entrepreneur at a young age in this survival mode without even realizing it. But fast forward to later life, in high school, I don't know if you remember these, but we had entertainment books that we sold in fundraisers. And I took that seriously. I was very excited to sell these entertainment books or those boxes of candy that tempted us. The giant size candy bars
Yeah.
that the kids are excited about these days. I had to sell those, right? They give you 100 candy bars, and you have to come back with $100 cash for the high school or the middle school, whatever it is. Like I loved that stuff from the beginning, and I wanted to make my parents proud that they didn't have to cover the difference if I didn't sell what was needed. And then, my parents were entrepreneurs. My
Wow.
mom owned a employment agency. Ironically, had nothing to do with my aspirations to start one. She did temp to perm staffing for graphic designers, right?
Wow.
And it's way different than what I do in staffing, but I could recite her voicemail till this day that she had to leave over and over because we didn't have, cell phone voicemails that you could just change them when you're out of the office versus, on a lunch break. And I think it was just something that I knew was in me, but I didn't ever necessarily have the goal to be an entrepreneur. I think I just wanted to be able to control my destiny, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And when I started 360 Payments after I worked for a company called Heartland Payment Systems, it wasn't because I wanted to start my own company. It was because I stopped having fun where I was at.
Mm.
And I could either control my own destiny by starting my own company or pivot and go work for
Yeah.
another company. And then once you start your own company, I like to say I'm unemployable at this point. So, I have too many opinions. I like to execute really quickly. So yeah, I mean, it started at a young age, and then my first quote unquote real company, I was 26. when I started. And then my, latest company I started, gosh, it was like 3 years ago. So 38 years old. And I love to get involved in anything I can do to help people with their businesses, even if it's not my own that I'm not the decision maker on.
Wow, that is awesome. And it's interesting you say this. And by the way, I am impressed that you took a lot of your spirit, your passion for entrepreneurship from your parents. And you said, I saw this, I heard this from my mom. And I'm not going to put you on the spot and say to our listening audience, say, what was that recording of that message your mom left behind?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, I can do it. Hold
Go
on.
for it then. I
Yeah,
wasn't going to do it,
yeah.
but
I'm
go for it.
like, thank you for calling preferred personnel. Our office is now closed. Your call is very important to us, so please leave your name, your number, and a brief message, and we'll return your call as soon as possible. Thanks. And
There you go.
I would mock my mother while she's doing that. I just like mouth it while she's doing it, and then I'd make her laugh, and she'd have to
Yeah.
start over. And
Yeah.
then I'd be like, "Mom, I can just do it for you. No one would know the difference."
Wow. Yeah.
But she had a different one, that started, thank you for calling preferred personnel. All lines are currently busy. And then the same end. Like, so I would just do this voice with her phone voice. But yeah,
Oh, that is awesome. Hey, Siri, you would have competition right here if Lisa decided to go down that path. And
right?
it's
I
interesting. You talk
know.
about being one of seven.
Yeah.
And something that's interesting, as our listening audience know, where the twins talk. This is the whole theme of our program. Your father is a twin.
Yeah.
Your grandmother was a triplet.
Yep.
And so to me, I'm like, okay, it runs in your family in more ways than one. You have to fight sometimes to find your voice. You have to make sure you're speaking in a way where you can be heard. So I'm not surprised that this is who Lisa is.
Yeah, no, and I was terrified, like I told you, for me to have twins when I was having my children. They're 6 and 9 now, but it's I love twins, but I was just like, oh man, I have to have two of them at once potentially. The kids are a lot of work, especially when you're running a
Yep.
company, and I don't think I told you, David, but I wanted to write a book. I still will one day, and it's I already have the title. I bring home the bacon and the milk, because I'm the CEO, mom, and I was pumping milk,
Oh my
40
goodness.
to 50 ounces a day. If there's any moms
Wow.
listening here, they know
Yeah.
that's a lot. And if
Yeah.
I had twins, I was just like, oh my gosh, would this be 80 to 100 a day? So yeah, no, I mean, I love twins, and my dad and his twin sister are amazing. That's for sure.
Well, I'll say this, Lisa, as a coach, when we are done with our conversation here, you and I will schedule some time and I'm going to help you to put that in motion and I'm going to work backwards with you because we need that book in this space. And if we're honest, more and more leaders are like you. They're leading organizations or they got high level responsibilities in the organizations they're part of. And sometimes they're not viewed in that way. They're not being
Yeah.
seen as someone who is a team player, but at the same time, they're just as productive, they're just as effective. Their sales are where they need to be at. Their people are where they need to be at. Oh, by the way, they happen to be a mom, right? So these are
Yeah.
things that I think need to come out in a book, and we need to get your voice out there. So let's talk about, let's work on it.
Yeah.
But Lisa, as we get back to what we were literally talking about before we got on this conversation, what we want to bring out to our audience is the spirit of entrepreneurship and how you bring that to inside the organization. How do you help your members, your team to feel like, hey, they can have that entrepreneurial spirit? So
Yeah.
talk about how you've developed that over the years and how you empower your people to have that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah. So it takes years to get to this point and to finesse it. And I've had so much coaching, David, that people have guided me to make me realize that my employees, I can't expect my employees to be me. Right? Like, there's a reason that we're in the seats that we are. We are entrepreneurial, and in that, it's not being afraid to take risks too. And I think a lot of people have aspirations, but they're really afraid to take those risks when you think about being a business owner. And luckily, I had people that I started my companies with, especially at a young age. And I couldn't imagine necessarily doing what I did when I was 26, at 36, had I not gone through, obviously when I was 36, I'd sold my first company. So I was in a different place. But that said, I like to teach people to not be afraid to fail. And as a leader, to get them to think creatively and to take that initiative, um, you have to give them permission to fail, is I'd say the first thing you have to do, and be okay with it. And not only be okay with it, but like kind of celebrate the failures of
Yeah.
things that don't work. Because when you learn something that doesn't work, you usually can, like, at least for me, I like to mentally check that box and be like, all right, at least I know I
Yeah.
tried that. Sometimes I'll tell my team, like, we just have to try this so I can get it out of my system. Right? Like I have to just know whether it works or doesn't work. And that's what I want them to do too. And one of my lines I like is, if you're not if you're not trying, you're not growing, and if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And I encourage my team to try, and then that gets them to be more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Drive is a whole different topic,
That
which
is.
I'm happy to go into on that. But I'd say to get them to bring out the inner entrepreneur, you have to start by celebrating the failures and allowing them to fail, and not getting mad at them or rubbing, their nose in it. Like the other day, our marketing gal sent an email that in the subject line said hi first name, right? And it's like marketing 101, where you like make sure you send an email like that doesn't say hi first name. It should say hi David or hi Lisa.
Yes. Yes.
She'll never make that mistake again, right?
Right.
So you have to allow those things to happen at your
Yeah.
business, and just kind of like laugh at them and chalk them up as like, hey, like let them make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like it's okay.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And the fact that you can laugh at that and be able to say, look, it's a learning lesson. It's how you're going to grow through it. And you know confidently she's not going to do that again because she's owning that. She wants to
Yeah.
become more effective at that. And that's really what it means to be able to have that inner entrepreneurial spirit. It's that sense of we're going to practice within our organization. We're going to practice within our company, allowing our people to use entrepreneurial skills and
Yep.
thinking, whether it's
Yep.
creating new products, redefining our services, or maybe streamlining our processes. It's what you're allowing them to do. And it made me think about a company I was trying to close a business deal with, Lisa. Maybe you need to coach me on this, but they're $1 billion company. And I was meeting with the CEO about our training platform because we're a learning and training company. And interesting enough, he said, Dave, I'm going to do the introduction. You're going to meet with my chief learning officer, my chief people officer. So two different people, and let them know what you do and how you believe you can help our company, even though we have our own internal academy. Well, he did the introduction. I met with these two individuals, and eventually they decided not to go with me, and they went with Udemy of all places. I'm like, Udemy's not even designed for your industry. I am, and I'm about half the cost because of the volume of people that they have. They're a
Yeah.
billion-dollar company, and what I found to be of a position where I respected as CEO even more is that he didn't go back and say, "You need to work with Dave because I want to work with Dave." What he said was, they run the departments as if they're the CEO. And if
Hmm.
they choose not to, even if at the long run, I'm going to have a meeting with them in the next quarter and find out they're costing my company more money, then that'll be
Yeah.
something I'll do with. But they've got to run it as if it's their business. I
Yep.
respected him a ton, Lisa, for that, even though I didn't win the business.
Yeah. No, I mean it is the real thing. And as CEOs, you don't want to be the one that knows everything, let alone
Yes.
does everything. And you need to know enough to be dangerous and enough that you can relate to your people, but you
Yes.
have to empower them. And I agree with you. Like I do respect that the CEO had them make the choice. And yeah, I mean you have to empower them, and
You
it's the
do.
whole weigh in to buy-in thing
Yep.
too, right? If
It is.
if the
It is.
employees are being forced to choose you, and you're not going to get them
Right.
to support the onboarding process as much as it as Udemy, right? Like if they're choosing it, they're going to be like more engaged on the onboarding and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
you gotta.
right. And I'm glad you said that. And by the way, if you're listening to the program today, you like what you've been hearing, you appreciate the content, but more than that, you just love the guests that we're able to bring on. Make sure you subscribe to this. Make sure you're sharing this and become an apologist for what we're trying to do. I have another company that I've been working with that has, in many ways, the CEO turned me over to their chief people officer, and they turned me over to chief marketing officer. And I kept thinking I was getting bounced around, but what I realized is that this company had so many different layers of responsibility within the community. You know, you have the internal, you have the HR, you have their own learning
Mhm.
community, then you have their university. Is that I was being exposed to so many different decision makers that even though I'm getting buy-in from one now, I don't necessarily have the ability to get all three other components of their company community. And so I'm learning how to be more patient with it because they see the work that I've done, they see the value that I bring, and eventually they'll be my champion, which I appreciate
Yeah.
you doing that. I want to ask you from your perspective, though, Lisa, as someone who's built this foundation at your organization, what are some ways leaders, CEOs, business owners can model this sense of empowerment? How do they create these safe spaces to let ideas just start flowing? And as you said earlier, you actually acknowledge failure and celebrate it, but how do they reward this? So talk about the way leaders can model this,
Yeah.
create safety, and then maybe how do they celebrate it?
Yeah, so I'm like, deep down a like 15 or 20-year-old, right? And a 40-year-old CEO body here, and I'm a mom, a soccer coach, all those things. But human beings, especially children, thrive with structure and
Yeah,
routine, right? As chaotic as I like to be and spontaneous, and I don't say no to going to a NFL game. If you're like, I got tickets to go, do you want to go? I'm like, yes. I mean, I like to just do things erratically sometimes like that. But we live our businesses every single week on quarterly plans. They're 13-week races. It's the book called Rhythm Management. You can get it on Amazon. I don't make a commission or anything. I don't have a code for any of you guys if you're listening, but we live by measuring data, and I love data. I make database decisions, but I still like to realize that there's, 50 shades of green or 50 shades of blue, whatever your company logo is, and realize it's not 100% data driven.
yeah,
But to empower them and to track what they want to try, you have to establish some sorts of baselines
you do.
in your business, whether it's customer service, whether it's, at the assembly line from onboarding a deal to getting them to go live and every stage in between, sales leads to close rates. And, we literally track it weekly and set targets. So I'd say it starts there to make sure you have those. And by the way, you have an individual contribution to that. And you have to explain to every team member how what they do day in and day out impacts the business. So if you answer, a customer service call and you're, yawning and not paying attention or watching a Netflix video on your phone, like whatever, and you're just like, yeah, yeah, I'll pass it on, and you forget to pass that on, like that customer can turn into somebody on Facebook that goes and blasts your
Mm,
company. And then there's five different buyers, like prospects that see that, and it negatively impacts the
yeah,
sales guy who's trying to bring on leads, which then impacts, your on customer service success managers, bringing them on board. Like those little things all make a difference. And
yeah,
I'd say like highlighting every single week how each person makes a difference is critical. Little tools that we put in place to make sure we're highlighting the positives, by the way. If anybody here uses Slack and you have Google reviews, you can connect your Google account to Slack and it does real-time notifications whenever your company gets mentioned in a Google review, positive or negative. So ours are live, they're real time. It's very rare that we get the negative ones, but if they are negative, you can act on them quickly,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We use a tool called 15-5. And it's like, you do a weekly check-in, you give your, on a scale of 1 to 5, how did you feel this week? What did you accomplish? What are your priorities next week? You can throw in questions for your team, I think last week's question we had was like, what food did you not like as a kid that you love now? And there's like people
right.
Brussels sprouts and like, all that fun stuff. The point is on that, there's a high five section
Yes,
and you can give high fives. That also integrates to Slack, but the least you can, so it's real time when people are giving their teammates high fives.
Yep.
You can pull reports and look at that and send it to the teammates, each week, month, quarter, whatever you want to show them all the high fives they received. And they get that real time notification too. So it's celebrating that stuff behind the scenes, but like our team's doing it for us.
Yeah.
Right. So those little things I think make a difference.
No, I'm glad you said that, Lisa. And it may warrant us to have another conversation on how you do that effectively, because we talk about one-on-ones, we talk about coaching, we talk about giving them the tools they need to be successful. And then you even said, look, hey, we want to show you guys your high five moments.
Yeah.
The book that you got at the conference, our book that was just launched last week, identically opposite, Find Your Voice and Speak. At the very end, we talk about raising your hand and give each other high fives. And so while I was teaching this, at the conference you and I were both at the very end, I had everybody stand up and like give each other high fives, because you're actually choosing to let your voice be heard. You're
Yeah.
choosing to celebrate the fact that you're able to speak up or speak out or contribute to the growth of the team. And matter of fact, you being a sports fanatic, I know you're a Giants fan, even though you live on the West Coast. It's interesting enough. We're not in the game with the pads on, but we feel like we celebrate with our team when they score that touchdown. When Jameis
Mhm.
Winston gets in that end zone, he's doing that celebration, even though he's super silly. We're giving each other high fives, right? Because
Yeah.
we feel like we contribute to that, whether it's the spirit of
Yeah.
it or what have you. You're celebrating it, and I love that you do that. I want to get a little bit more practical, if you don't mind me asking
Yeah.
this. For those that might be listening today, there might be directors. I know we have business owners, emerging leaders that listen to the show. How do they also help bring out that entrepreneur? Are there other things they can do other than the 15 and 5, or maybe
Yeah.
saying we can model this, but what else can they do to help bring this, cultivate this in within their own teams?
So we at 360 we hired a third party to come in and help us build our MVV, our mission, vision, and values. And it's really we're a payments company, right? Like, it's payments should work. It's like
Yeah.
electricity where you shouldn't have to think about it. Although mine went out the other day when I had 40 people coming for my end of season U10 soccer team party here. But payments isn't really sexy, right? It's not a thrilling product. Like it's just like, all right, yeah, we gotta accept credit card processing. So we had to come up with our mission, vision, and values. And ultimately, we wanted to make credit card processing like an
Mm,
afterthought, right? Like it's just something that you don't think about breathing unless you're sick, right? Just like it's happening right now. And we wanted to be the number one payments company in the automotive space. But you can have those mission and visions, but you have to have values to get there.
yeah.
And we didn't want to be boring and say like every company, oh, we have to be trustworthy, right?
Right.
We made ours honest to a fault as an
Mm,
example there. And we didn't want to say, we were like resourceful. We said we were scrappy. And these are all things that when you look back at it, it's
yeah.
like really entrepreneurial, qualities. And
Hmm.
honest to a fault, we tell everybody is, doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Nice.
And,
Nice.
as entrepreneurs, you can't hide from
No.
your real truth. And we have to encourage teammates to do that kind of stuff. Scrappy, oh my gosh, like I still to this day have like things in my home office from 360's first building to make me remember that we paid $1,000 a month for rent and we didn't have heat, which we're in
Wow.
Northern California. We don't need heat, like we were literally like scrappy sharing, offices with each other for the body heat basically. And,
Yeah. Wow.
I'm not telling people to go do those things,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
you know, when they're thinking about buying a plane ticket, and they're using the corporate card or they're going to submit reimbursement. I asked them like, if this was somebody buying the plane ticket on your company, how would you feel? Like, what
Nice.
would you do? And they're like, well, I'd go look at all the other options and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a jerk. I understand if somebody has loyalty and points to one airline and they're leaving their family, but sometimes it's three, four, $500 difference
It
than
is.
what, maybe they're Delta people and they're, the Southwest flight, which bags fly free at least right now. Right? Like maybe that one's less expensive. So, I want our team making those decisions, but you have to circle it back to how it impacts them later.
Yeah,
So if
that's such a
they're
good point.
saving that $300 on the company,
Yeah.
they're not getting their loyalty points, they're the ones leaving their family. What does that mean to the company?
Mm,
And being transparent that like we show our EBITDA every single month, every quarter, whenever people want to see not just revenue, EBITDA, like we will drill into pretty much anything but
nice.
people's personal pay. Super transparent. But like we tell them, hey, if the company's making money, this means we can give more raises. This means we
Nice.
can get cooler swag. This means that we can acquire companies. This means we can buy tools that make you more efficient. Like, I mean, we're constantly explaining why behind it. And when you're doing that, you're really training them to be entrepreneurs. And I think what I
Nice.
told you before is, I have a lot of people that have started companies that worked for
Yeah.
me in the past, or like a lot of my friends have started companies, whether it's robotic companies that change tires on cars. And I'm like, oh my gosh, or they're, buying food trucks or starting payments companies, you name it. I like to just say that people, we all put our pants on the same way, David, one leg at a time. And, I think a lot of people around me are like, hey, if this idiot can do it, I can do it too. Because like, all you got to do is teach them to take care of people,
Yeah.
have the customer first, employee first mindset,
Yeah.
and figure it the heck out, right? If
Yeah.
you just have that mindset every day, like you're not gonna fail. It might not be
Yeah.
easy, but you're not gonna fail. And perseverance is
Yeah.
like what I have that a lot of people don't, right? But they don't realize they have it if they aren't exposed to it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and for so many things that you shared, so many things that you shared, I feel like I want to dig into it. But you mentioned a keyword, mindset. What we're cultivating is mindset. We don't want robots. We want people to think for themselves, but we want them to think of the overall impact it's going to have. Sometimes when you
Yeah.
think, I'm just doing one thing, I've got one widget, I'm just one cog in the machine. But when you see the greater vision, when you're able to see the impact that it has, the overall, then that makes all the difference in the world. You want to be excellent in that. Are there any other mindset shifts that you've seen your employees go through in order to learn to take on that inner entrepreneurial mindset, in order to be able to say, now I'm in a position where I want that, whether it's embracing the values, embracing the different minds, aspects of training tools that you've provided? Are there any other shifts that you've seen that have been helpful for your employees to be able to have this mindset of their own?
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, that's such like I'm trying to think of specific examples for you, but I think that one of my favorite lines is, is this the hill I want to die on? And as a business owner, I think everybody, if you're a good business owner or leader, I should say, your people are coming to you constantly with ideas because that means you're approachable. If they're not coming to you with ideas, and and just like, oh, have you seen this, or they're like sharing like cool articles or videos, whatever the case is, like whether it's competition or just something that is intriguing, like if they're not coming to you, then there's an approachability issue and you will never
Yeah,
get the entrepreneurial side of people out. So when people come to me with ideas, the mindset shift in them comes after they've had their small wins from me.
nice.
So I always ask myself, like, is this just like a small win that I can let them have? And maybe it's like, a pain in the butt that I give a account manager or salesperson a win that now my, engineering or product person is going to have to take an hour out of their day to go do something that derails them a little bit, but that those small wins just like light fires under them to make them feel like they're part of the bigger picture.
Hmm.
And it's not just a win for them, like making a commission, like letting them have a deal they shouldn't have had type of thing. Like this is like, sequence stuff,
Yeah.
product stuff, system, process, all of that. So I'd say like the mindset shift comes after you've empowered them to have those victories.
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate even the ability to say, I've got to be approachable. You want to kind of spark that sense of curiosity. I think some of the best entrepreneurs aren't the people that figure out a need or a niche. They're the most curious leaders. They're
Hmm.
always thinking ahead. They're always thinking about what if this, what if that, what about this? And so if you can create that in your people, to me, that's a great shift because then
Yeah.
they start thinking outside the box. They start thinking about what can help our company be even better than what it is. I think that's fascinating. I
Yeah.
want to I want to ask you about something that maybe presented in this way. From time to time, we do what's called a quick fire round of questions where we just kind of pepper our guests with questions. They may not seem like the questions you might get being in the CEO desk, right? But these are questions that might show a little bit about who Lisa is when she's not in the office. So
Okay.
let me ask this if you're open to it.
Yeah.
Lisa, first thing in your mind, greater joy you get coaching your children to winning a soccer game or coaching a team member to winning a new, let's say, deal or opportunity?
Oh, I'd say my kids. Yeah, especially the older, my son right now, because he's at an age where, we can actually play with strategy.
Nice.
My daughter, we don't keep score, so she's only 6. They think that they win games. I'm like, you guys got crushed, actually. But like they in their mind they won. But I'd say there's nothing better than developing kids. And yeah, I think maybe 10 years ago, even though I didn't have kids then, I probably would have said the latter. But
Yep. Yep.
yeah, coaching soccer brings me not just joy, but it's honestly, David, the one time a day that I don't think about anything but the kids. All right.
I
Like
think
that's
that's
what,
awesome. Yeah, I went from when I was earlier in my life as a parent. I went from I want to take over the world in the profession I was in,
yep.
and it became clear to my kids that's what dad's about. And I remember my wife one day said, "If you win the world and you lose your children, what did you do?" And then my mind shifted to where it wasn't about my name, wasn't about my fame. It became now I
Yeah.
want to be the greatest dad in the world. That's all I care
Yeah.
about. Be a good dad.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the best dad, but you know what? I keep telling myself
Yeah.
that every day, right? Even though my children are grown now. Second question, Lisa. What is the one hidden talent that most don't know about you but should?
Well, nobody talks about this stuff. So from a business perspective, uh, maybe you guys are getting this a little bit, but I always say my superpower is building strong teams. And you might also not get this from me because I am a big goofball and I promise I have a huge heart, but I have no problem firing people and getting them to resign by convincing them like this isn't for them. That's part of building a solid team. So I'd say that is definitely one of my superpowers professionally. Personally, I like sports, but a lot of people don't know. I played ice hockey growing up.
Mhm.
I have a mean slap shot still. I play with my kids out front and play over the weekend. I can sling a football like no other. So even though soccer is my number one, I'm extremely into all of the sports. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, maybe along that line, what's the one skill if you can master instantly, you would do it right now? What would that one skill be or trait? What would that one thing that you say, Dave, if I could do it right now, I would do it just like that. What would that one skill be?
You're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but public speaking, right? I would say, I have a lot more to do in my career, and I that is a master skill that I do not have. I might be comfortable talking one-on-one with you or, doing speeches for the end of season kids soccer parties. But I get really nervous in front of crowds, especially if I am supposed to say something. Unscripted, I'm way better, but public speaking, I'd say.
Well, that's why we're here working together. And hopefully you're going to be on so many more stages because when people do meet you, Lisa, they don't get that from you. I didn't get that from you. The first time I met you, I was like, wow, who's this dynamic, very charismatic, love her outward going spirit. There was that was there. But the truth of the matter is, most of my clients that I've found to have the most success are those who are either introverted or those who are very much of what I call how do you look at it? They're not the most extroverted people, but they're kind of in the middle, and they're ambiverts. And I
Yeah.
tell them all the time, those have been the best clients because they take it personally. They want to see the growth. They're not just
Hmm.
assuming they're great at it. So here's the question I want to ask you, though. One tip, and you can say, "Hey, Dave, I'm not master that yet. My kids are young." One tip for leaders who are trying to understand that work-life balance, work-life integration.
Yeah, I have a severe mom guilt, David, all the time. Like I think if, I was finding out tomorrow that something was happening in my life, like I'd have a lot of regrets. I'm going to be very honest there and vulnerable with it. I don't cry saying that anymore because I feel like I've gotten a lot better over the years, but um, just remember that there's so many people in the world that would love to have your problems.
Mm,
And as much as you beat yourself up as an entrepreneur who's a parent and this work-life balance and all of that, like, I personally don't believe in work-life balance. As an entrepreneur, I think you have to go all in and make it intertwine. It's really not a one or the other thing. But your problems are still phenomenal problems.
yeah.
And the guilt that you have, is normal. That's why I tell myself, my therapist says, if and when I ever retire, that I'm going to have to see her 3 days a week, because she's like, you need to be doing things.
Yeah.
I saw something on Instagram today that just said, 40 years from now, you're going to wish that you would trade everything you have to go back to where you are
Wow.
today.
Wow. That's such a good
So
point.
just live each day, the
Yeah.
best you can. And I think as entrepreneurs, you have a lot to give to others. Like I like to tell my wife, I'm always like, I might not be donating, my time to the community day in, day out and deal with nonprofit stuff, but I've employed hundreds of people and deployed millions and millions and millions of dollars into our
Yeah.
economy.
Nice.
That is helping other people's kids and other people's families. So that helps a little bit, but you
Yeah.
can say, 40 years from now, you would give everything you have to be where you are today. So capitalize on where you are
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Live out your life, have passion, gain
Yeah.
perspective, and realize that that little ripple in that wave, in that water, will make that incredible impact down the road. That's such a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up. Two more questions here, real quick,
Yeah.
Lisa. The one book or podcast you would recommend for leaders of organizations? Maybe it could be one that has helped you to have the mindset of building an organization with entrepreneurial mindset. But what's one book or one podcast you would recommend? I know earlier you talked about the rhythm management book, but is
Yeah.
there one? Is it,
Yeah. Hands down, Good to Great by Jim
yep,
Collins.
yep.
That book we've reread multiple times and it's shaped almost every part of 360 Payments, my first company, and what I learned there implementing at Promotive, my current company. But yeah, Good to Great, Jim Collins for sure.
Awesome. And one last question here, and this might be tough here because you're always in the mode, you're always in movement when it comes to your business and your family. Best destination for your family in terms of vacation and best city or destination you've ever visited for work.
Yeah, so we have little travelers. My mom gave me the advice early on, whatever you want your kids to be good at, do with them, right?
Nice.
So you want them to be good at napping in cars, get them napping in cars. Want them to be good at eating at restaurants, take them out to restaurants. My kids are the best travelers ever. They're 6 and 9. So as a family, where they thrive the most, is actually in cities. They love New York City. I grew up in New Jersey, hence the Giants reference from earlier. And they've been to Mexico, they've been to the Philippines, they've been to
Mm,
Hawaii, they've been,
wow.
you name all the, Southern California, so San Diego, we have a lake house in Tahoe. You ask them where they want to go on vacation, and they're going to say New Jersey, which also means New
Wow.
York City. So that's our favorite place to go as a family. We're going to Kauai next week for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
And they do really well with that stuff, but they like to be busy. And if they're happy, we're happy. Right? That's my mindset. From a business standpoint, We don't go, I'm in the automotive space and we don't travel internationally, other than for our Achievers Club, President's Club trips. But so I would choose when we went to Puerto Vallarta, and we rented a big Airbnb that had 13
Nice.
bedrooms for our top sales producers, business development team members, marketing, etc. And the intimacy that you have being in your own basically resort, and there's a staff cooking and all that for us too, just bonds us so much further together. And their spouses came and all of that. And
Oh,
actually,
nice.
that was my favorite place that I ever traveled to professionally.
Oh, that's awesome. And by the way, may I say that I love how you literally gleaned insight from your mother on the things that you're doing to create experiences for your children. And that to
Yeah.
me is fantastic. I definitely want to thank you today. If you've been listening, you understand what we've been talking about today. You want to build organizations with leaders who have this mindset. Bring out the entrepreneur. Don't be afraid of that. Let them embrace curiosity. Let them embrace this sense of resiliency and become those leaders that will help your organizations to thrive. Lisa, you can literally speak with me all day about this. You and I are going to get together over this, and maybe I'll come and be a speaker at one of your conferences, what have you.
Yeah.
But what I'll say that I've appreciated the most is not just your mindset when it comes to building your company. It's the way you approach people, and I know that this is who you are each and every time that you may interact with company at a conference, or whether that you interact with them, work with them personally. Thank you for joining our show today. You can find Lisa on LinkedIn. In fact, connect with her. Go to her company, promotive.com. Because Lisa, thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending some time today. You are fantastic. And I look forward to seeing more and more, not only the growth of your companies, but also the growth of your family. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me and happy holidays and happy new year.